Well, the whole idea of these are our children, right? I mean, does the state really know your child and love your child the way that you do? And certainly they're not responsible for your child the way that you are, but the state pretends. I mean, here in California, there's a legislation that is maybe going to make it to the governor's desk and he would sign it because Governor Newsom's insane. I mean, truly, I think
I've noticed that.
He's unhinged. I mean, he's unhinged for abortion. He's unhinged for, radical gender ideology. But this legislation would basically accuse a parent or a parent can be liable for child abuse and lose custody of their child if they're not, the legislation is very vague, they're not affirming of the child's gender. Now, what that could mean is you have some radical teacher, ideologue, there's many of them in the public school, who, sees a gender confused or just a gender exploring, a kid who's just like, exploring, or maybe they're having issues at home. They're on the autism spectrum because a lot of those kids have questions about their identity, and they seize on them. They make them their project. This kid is trans. And if the parent doesn't get in line with that, because they can keep that a secret from the parents. I mean, they're already doing that in schools throughout the country,
all over
public schools. And so now if the parent dares to say, no, my child is my child, and we're going to get, better healthcare for them, not just trans them, put them on hormone blockers and mutilate them, you can literally be jailed, not for transing the child, not for indoctrinating them in gender ideology and then blocking their natural, puberty cycle with hormones. You can be jailed for the opposite of standing against that as their own parent. It's terrifying.
It is. And this is not hyperbole. What you just said is real. And the likelihood of that happening, the likelihood of that bill advancing through your assembly, and the likelihood of your governor signing that are really high, or is really high.
Is it going to wake up finally?
Yes.
The silent majority of liberals and conservatives?
Yeah. Because the point that the broader kind of political point that you're making there, I think is really, really important for people to understand. 80, 85, maybe even 90% of Americans would disagree with that. And so
disagree with
Governor Newsom's position.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you think about the Youngkin example, you think about Governor DeSantis, you think about Governor Abbott, a whole bunch of really great governors who've up to that point have been a little tentative on this issue. They know that they can't be, because they have wind in their sails. They have the American people behind them. And so it will be terrible and draconian and evil for the families in California who have to suffer through that. The good news, the light at the end of the tunnel, if in fact that's the tunnel that's built, is that will be struck down. And by the Supreme Court.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so the final point is...
We're staying in California, Kevin.
Yeah, I know.
We're fighting for the state.
It's like potential martyrs, I understand. But the point is, we've got to, as a movement, tap into that angst and turn it into a desire to reorder American schools, to upend the California Assembly, to prevent Gavin Newsom in particular from having any future stops in his political career.
Music to my ears. Let's start with
why I'm here.
Let's start with, I love it. Thank you for not giving up on us. Let's start with the first thing that you just said as you were closing out that great statement. You were saying it starts with changing.